What's up, everybody? This is Joshua Harmon Sr., principal broker and owner of Harmon Real Estate Company. Yeah, I'm a principal broker. I focus on multifamily real estate, and I have a really good guest today on my podcast, Mike Vann. Some of you may know him, some of you may not, but he was somebody, he may not know this, but he's one of the first people that I met in the multifamily space. And it was an interesting meeting the first time I met him. I think it was on Bigger Pockets. And one thing that I've noticed about high producers, they give back to the community that changed their lives. So I'm just a kid on Bigger Pockets, and I messaged him. I didn't even have my license at the time. I don't remember what I was doing, but I ran into a 40-unit deal. He's like, "Man, I'm coming in town. I'll come out there and check it out with you." And we do the meeting with the seller. He tells me at the end of the meeting, Mike's like, "Why don't you just do this deal on your own? You don't need me." And I was like, "What the heck are you talking about? I just brought you a 40-unit deal." It's like, it's not for me. You should do it on your own, and I'll show you how to do it. And I don't know if he even remembers that story. But he just acquired a 55 unit in Fort Smith, and that was one of those moments for me. It was like, hey, look, I can do this. I could do this on my own if I decided to. And I went a different route. I ended up being a broker, but that's how I met Mike. He's just a great guy in general. And since I've met him, he's scaled this multifamily business that he's built probably since I was a kid. I mean, he's scaled this to a whole different level. So we're happy to have him on today. How are you today, Mike?
Doing great, Josh. I appreciate you having me on the show, man. Yeah, I remember that. I remember meeting you that day. I remember everything about it, man. I was really impressed by your hustle, and man, I'm impressed by what you've grown today. So
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. But Mike is a co-founder, principal of Trident Multifamily. And I mean, I don't even know how many units they have under management, but it happened quick. It happened quick. This all over the past 2 years is really scaled quick. They've got deals all over the Tulsa MSA. Have you guys branched out of the Tulsa MSA? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Trident specifically, all of our stuff is in Tulsa, but the principals have, before we came together to form Trident, had done deals with other partners in Kansas, Dallas, Arizona, some other markets. But as a Trident entity, it's our first deal was in Tulsa, and we decided to scale and grow in Tulsa and focus there. Actually, well, we can get into this later, but we have other markets we're looking at as well. So
yeah, we'll get into that, but I want to start from the beginning.
Sure.
When did this start for you? You know, how did you get into this business, and why did you get into this business?
Back in probably 2003, I was in the pharmaceutical business, and great job, good W-2. Thought that was a great stable employment. Then I got a phone call from my manager, told me to wait by the phone one day. We were going to go through some layoffs. So waited by the phone nervously, had new babies and all the bills, all that stuff. And so made it through the layoff, but it woke me up. And, at that point I decided, man, I don't want to ever have this feeling again. And so I was watching the late night infomercial. Back in the day, Carlton Sheets was on TV. You see all the palm trees and the big houses and fancy cars and all that stuff. And you can buy real estate and make money, using none of your own money, all that stuff, like, oh, okay, cool. So, but as things happen, you get comfortable. And after that time of stress passed, I was comfortable again. And I'd ordered the course, but it sat on the shelf. And then the following year, got that same phone call again, and, waited by the phone, made it through kept my job, but I'm like, okay, I'm not sitting around anymore. I don't care how comfortable I thought I was. Dusted off the course, read through it, and went driving for dollars, and found a duplex a few weeks later and got that closed.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. What year was that? Like, what time period was that?
That was 2003 is when I actually bought it. So I guess I'd gotten those two phone calls, probably 1 and 2. And then bought my first deal in 2003, and it was a for sale by owner duplex, and bought that, and then ended up buying another house, and then landed what I thought was my dream job, and in medical device sales, and moved to Texas. And so sold my properties in Arkansas and moved to Texas, and was there for a year, and really busy, really had a really great year, was very blessed. And one of the things that's important to me is my faith. And so I was praying one night, and I'm like, God, I'm not getting in any hurry here. We plan to be here for a while, but what's next? What do you got for me next? We've been really busy. We've been really successful. It's been, 10 months or whatever. So anyway, said that prayer. Next day, driving around, and got a phone call from the manager in Tulsa. She said, "Hey, Bob quit, and I want you to come interview for his job." 3 days later, got a phone call from the manager in Kansas City and said, "Jeff quit. I want you to come interview for his job." In the two markets that I had expressed interest in moving back to from Texas whenever I got the job. So power of prayer is pretty powerful. So anyway, fast forward, moved to Springfield, here for about a year, learned the market, flipped a couple houses. Then 2008 hits. I'm like, if people can't get credit to buy my flips, then I'm going to step back. And so but just dove back into my day job. And that's the great thing about my day job, is very flexible. So it allows me to kind of do both worlds without sacrificing the level of commitment to either one. So anyway, but had I been more educated, both when I sold those first two properties in Arkansas and also whenever I stopped flipping, had I been more educated, I would have probably kept those two properties in Arkansas, rented them long distance. And then instead of stopping flipping, I would have just started buying and holding and renting to let those properties appreciate over time. These, a bunch of HUD foreclosures, all that kind of stuff. But so that's the lesson I learned from continuing education. But after I stopped, I did start reading more and learning more. And like in 2010 hit, I'm like, oh my gosh, I made a huge mistake. I wasted 2 years. I need to be buying. And so put all my feelers back out to my contacts. And a buddy of mine was the president of a bank, and he had a broker come by and talk to him and ask if any of his investors would be interested in this bank-owned property that another bank had. And so he linked me up, and I bought a 16-unit bank-owned property. And
that in Springfield?
It was, in Springfield, right, one of the little areas just right around Springfield, but in Rogersville, the bank-owned property, really nice property, fairly, 5-6-year-old townhomes, whatever. Got a phenomenal deal on it.
It's awesome.
So that's when I jumped back in, and from that point, 2010, been going strong ever since.
That's awesome, man. So for you, and I ask all my guests this, and to be transparent to all the guests and to even the mic, we've been recording these podcasts. This is probably the fourth podcast we've recorded. We don't even know the name of the podcast yet, but we just want to talk to high-level people like yourself who just understand this business, have been through things, and they can, in retrospect, give some value to some folks who may be in a similar position to where you were 15 years ago, 18 years ago. So what was that? Was that the deal that got you over the hump? Because what I found is we can do what's comfortable to us. So you could have done single family and duplex your ass off until 2021 from 2003. And it would have been so comfortable. You'd have been fine. It may have hurt a little bit, but you would have been fine because that's what you were comfortable with. What was that deal that got you over the hump? Because you did 85 units in Springfield, Missouri on your own. You did another, I don't know, how many units did you do? And how many units did you do total on your own before you ever raised a dollar for anybody else?
About 120.
Yeah,
about 120 or so.
That's not common, and you know that's not common. Most guys aren't doing that. What was the deal that got you over the hump to say, hey, look, I can do this. I can go as far as I want to go in this business, and if I want to go and do what I'm doing today, this is all possible for me. Was it that 16-unit deal? Was it another deal along the line?
So first of all, I want to jump back for a second and tell you I like the fact that you're doing this podcast and you don't even have a name for it. I love it. The ready, fire, aim philosophy. I mean, love it, man. So that's so many people get so bogged down in analysis paralysis, and I got to get everything perfect before I do this. Yeah. No, ready, fire, aim. You educate yourself a little bit, you go out and do it and learn as you go, man. I love it. So anyway, back to your question. The 16 unit was the first, after I had, flipped those couple houses or whatever, and I stopped. That was the first first units I bought when I got back into real estate. So I didn't have anything up to that point. And so that was my first unit was 16 units. And man, I'm telling you, it was nerve wracking. But I mean, whenever I was negotiating that deal with the broker, I mean, my voice was quivering. I'm surprised he didn't hear it on the phone. My knees were, I was physically shaking when I was talking to the guy on the phone using my negotiating skills. But yeah, man. So that was the deal that got me back into the game. And really got me excited again. And so from that point, I mean, over the next few years, I just was buying, and probably passed up a few deals because that first one was so good. Kind of spoiled me, and probably passed up a few other good deals as well. But finally, decided that, hey, man, not every deal is going to be a home run. So
Yeah.
get out and do it. And so yeah, that kind of got me kickstarted. And I bought some other stuff, some smaller 5, 6, 4, 12, bought a package of single family homes from another investor that he had actually bought during the HUD foreclosure crisis, and ended up turning those into lease options to get people into home ownership, true lease options, not just churning down payment money and, going on the next guy. We actually helped. We had, I bought, I think 12 homes from him or 10 homes from him. And most of them were just in rental neighborhoods. So we just kept those as rentals. But some of them were in good neighborhoods where we could, we actually sold 5 or 6 of them to families and transitioned them from renters into homeowners. And that was really, really kind of cool. And, but yeah, and just kept educating myself along the way. I mean, I really kind of kick myself now that once again, I was comfortable doing these deals on my own. And I was comfortable in my W-2 job because I was making good money, and just thought I'll just build this along the way all on my own. And I didn't want to mess with partners or anything like that, And then I got another phone call from my manager, and he's like, "Hey, we're going to go through some layoffs here. You need to wait by the phone," type of thing.
Again.
I'm like, "What?" I'm multiple President Club winner, all this stuff like that, and I'm like, how are they going to get rid of me? But pride can get the better of you. And luckily, I was able to keep my job. But at that point, it woke me up again to say, okay, hey, I can go along this route on my own and get there eventually. But if, the blessing and the curse about having a good W-2 is it takes a lot to replace it. And although I had built a large portfolio, from a free cash flow standpoint, it wasn't where I needed to be to feel comfortable as my kids were, approaching driving and college and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm like, I need to do something different. And I just started listening to podcasts in 2017. And I got an offer to buy that 16 unit from me. And so I sold that, 1031 that into a 55 unit. That was in, I think, September. November 2017, I joined a syndication mentoring program because I listened to these podcasts and decided that, hey, syndication seems the route to go. So I joined this syndication mentoring program to learn not necessarily about real estate. They'll learn about the aspects of syndication, the SEC requirements, the legal requirements, the lending requirements, which all that's completely different. Even asset management of a 100-unit complex is way different than a 16-unit, or even a 55-unit. So joined that program, met some great people in there, partnered up with a couple different groups, and we bought 132 units in Lawrence, Kansas.
Love that deal, by the way.
About a 240, about a 243 in Dallas, a 348 in Dallas, and then that's when I had met Carl and Rodney during our networking sessions at all these places. I'd love to sit down and have a beer with them and all that kind of stuff. And we decided that we need to find a deal together. Let's we're all doing deals with other people. Let's do a deal together. So we did that. It's the thing about partners is drinking a beer with someone is one thing, but when you get into the heat of a deal and see how you work together with them, it's completely different. So we went into this as separate entities, but we worked really well together, had great synergy, and just had great accountability to each other and all that. I mean, it was fantastic. And so we decided after that deal was done, we were going to formalize our partnership and create Trident. And from there, we then bought another deal that year at the end of that year, and had another deal in queue whenever COVID hit. So we backed off, and then all throughout COVID, we actually did really well. I mean, our occupancy grew, our income grew, our NOI grew, and so awesome. we had confidence towards the end of the year that it'll be okay. And so we went out, found another deal, and closed at the end of the year.
Yeah, makes sense. That's awesome, man. That's it. You make it sound so simplistic, and me watching I didn't watch you grow because I missed 15 years of your education, I missed 15 years of it. I've only been a part of the past maybe 3 or 4 years, maybe 3 and a half. So you make it sound so simplistic. But what I want people to understand is that Mike, he's very conservative, extremely conservative. And he got that from 15 years of doing deals. He didn't do, because if you just started doing real estate and raising money in 2017, but those were the first deals that you've ever done, you're going to be more aggressive, because what was happening in 2017? There was a boom in real estate. You couldn't miss, damn near. You couldn't
Right.
miss. So
Yeah.
Mike has 15 years of experience prior to ever asking anyone for a dollar.
Through the downturn, that's the one thing, people who have been, doing syndications just for a few years and never experienced a downturn. I mean, I've been investing in real estate for a long time through the ups and downs and good and bad markets. So, there's a lot of value that you learn through those as far as how to make it through,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's a value in that. And I don't discount people learning from others' mistakes and being able to understand the analytics and understanding capital markets today. But that experience, you can't replicate that. You can't get that anywhere else. You had to have been through different cycles, different situations yourself to understand, hey, look, the numbers may be telling you this, but I'm telling you from experience, this is an opportunity for us to push forward, or maybe we need to scale back, because the numbers are telling you something. You can manipulate numbers. We've seen.
You can make a pro forma say anything you want.
Exactly.
You got to understand the assumptions and the market and the reality of if those assumptions will come to fruition or not. And that's something that I learned throughout my personal investing career. I did a lot of ready, fire, ready, fire, aim. I went out and just did it.
Yeah.
And there were some deals that, I was barely able to have positive cash flow on, but hey, I did it and
made it work.
And luckily, collectively, with my other, I had some big wins and some narrow wins, and so together they all worked out. But you learn as you go, and so I was glad I did that with my own money first.
Absolutely. And I want to stay on that point for a second, because we talked to a very common thing that I've run into with some of the people we spoke to prior to yourself is that, hey, look, there's people who are buying the 4, the 6, the 8, the 10, the 12, the 20, even the 55 like you did, and they're doing these deals on their own. There's not really any accountability there other than to the lender. The only thing the lender cares about is, are you making a mortgage payment? Have you seen a lot of the people that you are now partnering with today? Because some of these deals you're raising, some millions of dollars sometimes to get some of these deals done. So we could take 200, sometimes 300 different investors. You have to have a personal relationship with them. So you're talking to sometimes 200, 300 different people and understanding, where they are currently and just kind of understanding their situations. Are you finding that similar to what I'm finding when I'm selling people the 10s, the 12s, the 20s, the 30s, that they don't even understand what their returns are? They're only looking at cash on cash and the exit. They're not looking at IRR. They're not looking at, just some of those different metrics that you now have been trained to really get an understanding of. Have you seen that they really don't even know what their returns are? And if they did, they probably wouldn't do those deals.
Yeah. You see some people nowadays, especially in the more competitive markets, doing really skinny deals and making really aggressive assumptions that I personally wouldn't feel comfortable with, because as you mentioned earlier, they've been buying through this hot market cycle, and as cap rates continue to compress, it made up for the mistakes you would make.
Those assumptions go out the window as things compress.
Now that things have gotten so competitive, and this caused the deals to get skinnier, and the margin for error is very, very small, and we're getting to the point in the cycle that many people thought we would have already had a downturn, and we really haven't seen that yet. Even with COVID, we haven't really seen a huge downturn, and you haven't seen people thought, oh, they're going to start flooding in these bank-owned deals in like 2008 again. I don't think we're going to see that.
No,
we'll see a correction, but I don't think we'll see a crash like we did before. But yeah, it's the where people are being forced to go to get deals. Anybody can buy an apartment complex. You just got to be willing to overpay.
Yeah.
And the people who end up losing from that are your investors. And that's something that I don't ever want to put myself or them in a position to do.
Absolutely.
Is to make a capital call, or to, even worse, lose their money.
Yeah.
Not to say it couldn't happen, but I'm going to try and put myself in the best position to make that not happen.
Absolutely. And that speaks to your character, your integrity, and just being transparent to people that trust you. Um,
Mhm.
so when you like I was saying before, when you're seeing some of these investors, they would trust you and they're investing with you for a reason. Why aren't they just doing their own deals rather than investing with yourself? Because they could just do what you've done,
Yeah.
with the build up the 130 units and buy 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Are
Mhm.
they seeing that they're just not making the returns that they need to make? Are they just want to save
Well,
time? What are you
I
seeing most of the time when you're getting people to invest with you?
I think a lot of it is time. I mean, people, a lot of people don't have the flexibility that I've had in my career, in my day job. I mean, they go to an office 8 to 5, and so they don't have the flexibility like I've had because if I'm not in surgery, then I can be on the phone or on my computer for a while waiting for the next case to start or something like that. So whereas if you're a lot of times in an office job, I mean, you're there 8 to 5, and all your stuff is forced to be done on your lunch hour or after work, and just not conducive to a lot of the things you have to do to do these types of deals. And so, but a lot of it is really just time. I mean, they don't have the time to do it either during the workday, or they don't want to put the sacrifice that it takes to work basically 2 full-time jobs. And so if you can make 15-20% on your own been doing all the work, or you can make 15 to 20% investing with me and I do all the work,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you?
Yeah. And most importantly, even more than not doing the work, is a lot of times you've probably got 100 different people investing alongside with you. So if you
Yeah,
lose, 100 other people lose too, and they've got the
right.
same amount of capital in that deal with you. So
Yeah.
that kind of gives you that reassurance that, hey, look, I'm not alone on this, not only with the workload, but then also with the capital. Because sometimes you'll see somebody just raise $100,000 from one guy. You to put up all the money, I do all the work. Well, there's no really alignment of interest. Who loses here?
Hmm.
That makes
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
We invest in every deal alongside our investors, and so we have not only our reputation at stake, but also our own capital.
Your own
I mean,
capital.
we have an alignment of interest there,
Yeah.
and we also structure our deals with preferred returns, which puts the LP investors ahead of us as far as any gains that are made.
Yeah. And when he says LP, for those who don't understand, all of you should understand, because this is the business that you want to be in or you're involved in. It's a limited partner. He's a general
Right.
partner. He's on the front lines. He's investing capital. He's getting the financing. He's doing the due diligence. He's hiring property management. You as a limited partner aren't really liable for anything. At the end of the day, you
Right.
just put money up. You're putting money up, and you're going to share in on the upside without the risk of being sued or any of those
Hmm.
other things. So you talked a little bit about your reputation. How important is, I read a book years ago, and I'm only 28, so it ain't that long ago. You started investing when I was like 8 years old. So you've been doing this for a long time. So I got a
Right.
lot of respect for you. But the 4 agreements, it talked about guarding your reputation at all costs. How important in the business that you're in today is your reputation, is integrity, and people knowing anytime the name Mike Vann or even Trident Multifamily is being mentioned, that is being mentioned in a positive light. How important is that?
That is everything, really. I mean, if you think about it, this is a relationship business, not only a relationship with your investors, but a relationship with brokers, lenders. I mean, all the moving parts and pieces that it takes, and your reputation is all you have. And so you do want to guard that at all costs. And so, yeah, I mean, that's paramount to your success in the business, is having a good reputation, having integrity, doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. Best piece of advice I could ever give anyone.
Absolutely. And that's something that I've had to learn, because my generation of millennials, we get a chance to look at things through my unrealistic scope of social media.
Mhm.
Everything just happened. You can do these few things and do these 5 things, you'll be successful. Or hey,
Yeah.
do these 5 things and you'll be able to invest in real estate. Or you could be an entrepreneur if you do these few things. All those different
Right.
gimmicks out there, and you're the epitome of, this is a slow grind and it's a long game. You got to take your
Mhm.
time. You got to put your time in, and eventually it will pop off. But this isn't something that just happened overnight.
Yeah. It's not a get rich quick. It's a build wealth slow.
Yeah. Or
But
what
yeah,
Grant Cardone, the aggressive king, will say is get rich for sure. Like get
right.
rich quick is
Yeah.
get rich for
Yeah.
sure.
I like that. I don't know if you ever seen that poster about, I think it's in the Success series, where it shows the iceberg and it says, the tips above the water, and it has success and money and, all this stuff. And so this is what people see, is this up here above the water. What they don't see is the huge part of the iceberg below the water that talks about the blood, sweat, tears, time, sacrifice, everything else you've had to do to get to that little piece of success that everybody sees above the water.
Absolutely. Absolutely. People don't understand that. I've had to learn that. I've been fortunate enough to learn this at a younger age, but man, a lot of people my age are calling me, hey, what are you doing? How do I invest in real estate? I'm like, man, it's slow. You buy a fourplex, you're gonna make $400 a month. That's not life changing.
Right.
It's a slow grind.
It's something, but it's something that at least if you're doing it, whether it's a fourplex or whatever, or 100 unit, I mean, getting out and doing it is the important thing.
Yeah. So I have a more personal question to ask you, and I don't know if you want to get into this or not, but you have a son who's in college, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I know your daughter's in college.
Yeah.
You have kids that are in college today. What are you teaching them? Are you teaching them from more of, hey, watch what I'm doing, just watch me, or are you actively teaching them, hey, look, this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing it. After you get out of school, these are a few things that you can do to start putting yourself in a position a lot earlier than I was in the position I'm in today. Because this didn't happen overnight, and these are the bricks that you need to lay in order to be in the position that I'm in today, or even past what I'm doing today. Is that something, or conversations that you're having with your children about wealth, real estate, and different things like that?
Mm-hmm. Sure it is. Yeah, I've had those conversations for years, and at first they don't get it. You know,
Yeah.
they don't get it, but I still keep talking
Yeah.
and explain the why behind what I'm doing and how it's going to benefit them and their families in the future. And as far as nuts and bolts, they haven't really gotten too deep into that, you know, and I'm not going to force the issue.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely some ongoing education in that aspect. And but you know, at the end of the day, I want to let them live their life and put as much guidance and influence in it as I can. But when the time is right, I'll have them set up. Whether they take over what I'm doing or not, or if I just sell it all and put it into triple net and let them live off the income.
Yeah.
I'm gonna continue to educate them, and hopefully that they will take an interest in it at some point in the future and realize that what we've built has been for them, and why they should continue on to do the same for their family and generations in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. I like what you said. And some people who may not be as active in real estate may not understand. They're going to take over what I'm doing, or I'm just going to buy a bunch of Walgreens and just let them live off of it, because they ain't going anywhere. Walgreens rarely ever move. So that's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm sure my kids are young, 5, 3, and 2. So I'm always asking that question, like, what the heck am I going to do?
I would love for them to, oh yeah, I want to read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I want to do this.
Yeah.
But I mean, kids now, man, they need to be kids. I'm not going to force it. Like I said, if they took an interest in it, just like they do with anything they have an interest in, I help them pursue whatever their interests are and learn as much as they can and go as far as they want. But I'm never going to force them to do anything that they don't want to do. I mean, some things I do, but
some things are a necessity, man.
Some really important things you do force the issue, but you got to pick your battles.
Yeah. So we don't have a whole bunch of time left. Mike's got a lot going on. Fortunate even to have him here. So I got only a few minutes left with you. Let's talk a little bit more about Trident. Let's talk about where you guys are today, because I think that's the exciting part. And I think most podcasts focus on the exciting part and not the nuts and bolts. So we wanted to really dig deep on a lot of things prior to, but now I want to talk about the exciting stuff from 2017 to now. How exciting has it been? Like, you've blown up. It's like everybody knows. And if you're in this space, you know about Trident. You know about one of those guys in that group, because they're everywhere. They're going to Colorado to the best ever conference together. They're networking. They're building like crazy. Tell us kind of how that, where you guys are today as assets under management, and where you guys see yourself going in the future.
Yeah. So right now, Trident as a whole, we only have about 376 units as Trident, but together, the other partnerships that we are all in, we have about 1,400 units that we have a controlling interest in, and then a little over 2,000 of the additional passive deals we've done and things like that. And so, no, we're in growth mode, man. I mean, we are full on out. We're actually in best and final, turned our best and final offer in on a deal in Kansas City that we're hoping to get. We'll find out more hopefully next week on that one. Hopefully we get some great news on that. But it's a broker we had transacted with before, but it's very competitive. There's 8 other groups in the best and final. I mean, so it's really competitive. Put an LOI in this morning on 344 units in Tulsa. And so maybe we'll get them both. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, win or lose, you just keep going. And that's something that persistence is another key, You just have to keep going. Take the wins, celebrate them, learn from the losses, and keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. One thing I know about Mike, he's always going to stick to his fundamentals. Always, no matter how much he likes the deal, the area, whatever, the fundamentals are first. One thing that you taught me, you may not even know this, I used to send you deals all the time when I was learning how to analyze deals. I've got it down packed now, but early on, a couple of years ago, I would send him deals all the time. And he would tell me 2 things: reversion cap rates, which means the cap rate that you're going to sell the property at. I would never change it. And Mike would always tell me, you need to increase that cap rate every single time, at least a percentage. So that was one thing. And then another thing that I never really understood was taxes and insurance after acquisition. I wouldn't change that either. Sometimes I would reduce the insurance. Mike's like, absolutely not. That insurance needs to go up, and those taxes need to go up a lot, because that's what's going to happen every single time. Taxes will never go down for you, Josh. I promise you. Unless somebody just screwed up. And how uncommon is that? So speak to that. Kind of, how did you get that conservative underwriting? Because these are things you had in 2018 when you first started the group. So this isn't something you just learned when you got to the group. This is something you always had. Where did you learn that?
Well, I learned from my own personal experience. I mean, just buying stuff over the years. And then whenever I did get into the group and started talking to other operators, that's one thing about when you want to do something new, you get around people who are doing what you want to do and are already at where you want to be, and you learn from them. And so, taxes and insurance are different when you get into large multifamily versus the smaller stuff even. But I learned that you can actually protest your taxes.
Yeah.
Some states you have better luck than others, but you have to learn what the assessment cycles are in different markets, county, city, local, and insurance is huge. I mean, understanding the insurance markets is something that is it's difficult to do because they're so different in every market. I mean, like North Carolina, for example, versus Oklahoma. I tell buddies, what I'm paying per door in insurance in Oklahoma, and they're paying literally almost half of that in North Carolina. And North Carolina has hurricanes, but the insurance is so much cheaper because of all the wind and hail you get in Oklahoma, Texas, all that kind of stuff. So understanding that and understanding, it may be at $280 or $280 a door today, but you better underwrite it at 500 plus. It's a deal in Oklahoma, because it's going to be there or very close. And insurance was stable for a long time, for many years. And then over the last 2 to 3 years, the last 2 especially, it's darn near doubled in some markets. 30-40% increases are not uncommon.
Yeah. And you understanding that helps you underwrite deals on the front end. That gives you the confidence to write these LOIs. Because the reason I brought that up, how conservative you are, is because the deals that I would send you, I would only send you the deal once I've underwritten it into work. And I'm like, am I sure this works? And I would send it to Mike. Mike was like, no, it doesn't work, because you need to increase your taxes and insurance. In the 15% IRR went all the way down to like 10, and you can't do that. It doesn't make any sense. So I would always Mike was one of my last lines of defense to basically not do a deal. When I didn't want to do a deal, I would send it to Mike, and he would show me a reason why the deal didn't work.
The deal killer.
Yeah, the deal killer. But I love that, because when you're underwriting deals and you're raising money, it's so important that you're a good steward of capital. Because the money that you make, somebody give you $100,000. How long does it take somebody to build up a nest egg of $100,000? It takes a long time. Me and you are in sales, so we can go increase our sales. We can bust our butt. Hey, we need to make this happen. Aim, fire, ready, fire, aim. Let's go make this $100,000. But for most people who are in salary W-2 positions, they only make salary. This is it. You screw this up for them, they're going to scream to the mountaintops how terrible you are.
Right.
So I love that you do that.
I mean, you be conservative. You find every way you can to kill the deal, and if it still works, then you got at least a good, solid performer, and possibly a home run.
Absolutely. We're gonna wrap it up here, man. We're about that time. Mike has other things to do. I can talk to him for hours just because I'm asking all my selfish questions that I like asking them anyway. But, tell people, first and foremost, appreciate you coming on. And one thing that I hope that the listeners pull from this, if you are somebody who or is an accredited investor, this is somebody that you want to invest with, because he is as conservative as it gets. He is not going to lose your money. And I put my name and my reputation on that. One thing he won't do is lose your money. I know that for sure, because he's underwriting as conservative as it gets. And he's been doing this for a long, long time on his own. And I've seen him take down deals in my backyard that needed to be taken down a long time ago, needed to be transitioned. And I've walked units in some of his properties, and every single tenant has something positive to say. So he's not only being conservative with the capital and being a good steward of capital, but he's also changing people's lives and making an impact on communities. And that's something different than a lot of the operators. Most people are profit first. Mm-hmm. Profit's great, but if you're ruining everybody's life in the first place and displacing everyone who's living in the property, I mean, what are you really doing?
Right.
So he's a man of faith, and he's somebody who's taking care of communities. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, you have a duty to not only your investors, but the people that you're serving in the community itself. I mean, everybody deserves a clean, safe, affordable place to live, and that's part of the mission that I feel God's called me to, is not putting money above people. Yeah. And you're there to serve and give. Everyone has dignity, and you need to recognize that in everyone. And these aren't just
numbers in a spreadsheet. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have to treat everybody with love and give them the dignity that they deserve. And it ends up making you more money because they stay longer, they take better care of your place, they tell their friends and build a community there, and ends up in the long run making you more money just by doing the right thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So to wrap this thing up, how can the people get in contact with you? How can people, whether you're somebody who wants to invest or somebody who just wants to connect with you, how can they get in contact with you?
We're all, Trident Multifamily on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn. We have tridentmultifamily.com is our website. We have an educational video on there, how to make mailbox money. It kind of goes over the highlights, passive multifamily investing. Or send me an email, mike@tridentmultifamily.com. Love to connect.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much, Mike. It's always great to catch up with you. I call you every once in a while just to get a little bit of information from you and always get some wisdom. So I appreciate you. Thanks for adding value too. Thank you so much for coming on, and we'll catch up with you soon. Okay.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you. Take care.